Hello, and welcome to Art on the Farm with Mia, Sage, and Jan, brought to you by the Monroe Area Council for the Arts. Today we're going to be making a melting snowman. To do this, you're going to need 2 packs of the air dry clay, 1 ounce. Crayola Model Magic is a really good brand to use. Also, the Play-Doh air dry clay is another good option. Those are going to dry like a foam. And so it takes several days for them to dry, but oftentimes they're really nice and like a solid foam whenever they dry. So that's a really nice option for you. You'll need 2 of the 1 ounce white. You'll need 1 of the 1 ounce yellow and 1 of the 1 ounce red to do this project. Also, beads in the colors that you might want to use for your melting snowman. For me, I just chose a black or a dark gray bead because I'm only going to do the eyes and the mouth. But if you want to add extra buttons on down his body, that's perfectly fine. And anything else that you think might look good. You'll need a plate. And I like to use just a little bit of plastic wrap, a little bit of cellophane to put on my plate to keep the final project from sticking to it as it dries. So let's get started. You are going to want to go on and open up all of your air dry clays. You are going to take your white. Before you do, make sure your hands are nice and clean, because if you've been playing with anything else or working with anything else beforehand, oftentimes it will start showing up in your air dry clay. If you use the Play-Doh brand of the air dry clay, you are probably going to find that it starts to lose a bit of its fluffiness as it is being worked. And it starts looking like a whole lot and then just kind of works its way down. Once you've worked that, kneaded that in your hand, you're going to roll that into just a nice ball. Don't be afraid if you can't quite get your ball the way you want it, to use a nice flat hand. Quite often that's going to help you to shape it into what you want it to be. This is going to turn into his head. So as you're looking, if there's a flatter side, that's not going to matter. But any places where you see ripples that you think are unattractive, this is the time that you're going to want to fix that. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. I'm going to move to my next ounce. And with my next ounce, I'm going to start it the same way. I'm going to knead the air dry clay. Just work it in your hands. Every once in a while, you'll find that a little bitty bit of the clay maybe got within the sealing of the package, and it will have a little bit of a rubbery feel to it. If you ever find that, just pinch it out because you don't want that to be a part of your project. It hasn't happened to me very often, but it has a little bit. It has some. Now, once I have worked with this piece of clay, I'm going to start thinking to myself, all right, have it into a very irregular ball. Okay, I've already worked it. I feel comfortable with the clay. I'm going to start squishing it into an irregular pancake. Not a perfect pancake, but an irregular pancake. Now, anything thinner than a very thick pancake, anything thinner is going to cause you problems later once it dries. It's going to be so thin it's going to easily break. So you want a very nice thick pancake. Also, you notice I'm not slapping this down on the table and going wha-bam, wha-bam, wha-bam. It should never sound like a workshop in your clay making space. Should never sound like a workshop in your clay making space. A nice flat hand. And then using a flat hand or the heel of your hand, as long as you're careful about it, will go very far for you. This also gives you much more control. If I take my fingers and I'm pushing it down with my fingers, I'm going to end up with thin spots and thick spots because of the irregularity of my fingers. I want to use the heel of my hand to work this out. And once you have what is like a very thick pancake, then you can start looking all around and you can decide, is it irregular enough? As I was originally working it, I thought, oh, this is going to be a nice irregular piece with edges going different directions. Well, as I was working it, it kind of smoothed itself out. Now it looks more perfect than I wanted it to. Darn tootin'. So if I want to change it up, then I can very lightly tap. I can say, I want a curve right here. Very lightly tap, very gently pull, very controlled with yourself. Very controlled. Don't go crazy with it. I see where there's a natural ridge occurring there. I want to add to that ridge. There we go. A nice dip. Nice little dip of snow there. Over here, I want to counter it with another one. Notice I'm very, very intentional as to what I'm doing. Very, very intentional with the clay. Not ever squishing hard. Okay? So, this will be the base of my melting snowman. This will be the base. I'm going to take it and I'm going to lay it on my plate. Before I started the video, I went on and put a nice little thin piece of cellophane. That way, as it dries, it's not going to be sticking to the plate, which can happen. Also, if you decide to let it dry on your fireplace, on the wood of the fireplace, and you don't go and pick it up every few hours to make sure it's not stuck to the fireplace, you will get a very rude surprise at the end of the week when you pick it up. Because part of it will stay on the fireplace forever. Truth. Okay? So please be careful about that. Your parents are not going to like that. Husbands and grandmas aren't big fans of it either. I'll just tell you from personal experience. So, here we go. We have our ball that's looking more and more kind of like a little kidney going on here, a little egg. And that's perfectly fine. I can obviously see where I'm going to be choosing to put my face. So as you are looking and moving this around, be very careful, very intentional about where you're going to be putting your face. Also, you're going to want to make sure, I think I mentioned to have really good clean hands when you start. I didn't notice, but from another project that I was working on today, I had just a little bit of red underneath my fingernail. So on the back of his head, there's a little bit of red right there. See that right there? So this is a really good lesson to make sure that you have clean hands and to double check as well. Also, be sure you check and double check your surface, okay? That's going to be fine. It's going to be on the back of his head. I don't think anybody's going to notice that but me. Now, if you were working with a regular clay, so if you were working with an air dry clay that is not foamy, then you are going to need to score it. This is a process that, because we're using the Model Magic or the Play-Doh air clay, we're not going to have to worry about that. But if you are using another type of clay and putting two pieces together, then you would need to score. Scoring is making lines across through here. You would make lines with, I like to use a pencil, where you're going to attach it. Okay. you would add a little bit of water on both sides, and then you would attach it. Okay. Now, this again is something that working with the Play-Doh air clay or Crayola Model Magic, you don't have to worry about that. That's one of the great things about using this type of clay as an introduction. But for those of you using something else, look up scoring and make sure that you don't need to score, because just putting them side by side together with other types of clay or using a ceramic clay, you're going to find that when they dry, they separate. Whereas with this foam-based clay, you're not going to have to worry about that. So when I set it there, that's all I have to do. When I set him there in the center of my pile of snow, that's all I'm going to have to worry about doing. So nice. Okay. Now, I'm going to go on and do his eyes. I chose beads for my eyes. And you can choose to do the hollowed out surface, side that is, or you can choose to drop it on the floor. Use the other side. I'll have to get that in a minute. Okay. So however you choose to make it show is up to you. I'm going to be using the hollowed out part. I'm just going to very gently press it in. Once you've gently pressed it in, you're going to want to watch it for a minute. Sometimes they'll back right back out on you. There he is. Okay. Now I'm going to use the exact same process with my other beads. I'm going to make his mouth. Oftentimes, what I like to do, and I'm going to have mine, instead of smiling, it's going to be a reverse smile. So I'm going to do the peak of the frown right here. Again, that is not the nose. That is the start of the mouth. It's not the nose, it's the start of the mouth. And then I'm going to work from there on either side. I think it looks like it needs one more on either side. For you, it may not, but for him, he just looks incomplete to me. Better. Much better. All right. Now you're going to be getting out your red and your yellow. These air dry clays, because we're only going to use about a pinch of each at best, they will keep in a zippy bag as long as you seal it really well. And you go back and use it within, I would say, about 3 days. You're usually pretty good. So I just got a pinch of each color. It's pretty even there. Maybe a little more red than I wanted. Can always add a little bit. Then I'm going to mix that. First, that's going to swirl. But if we remember from our color theory, these are two primary colors. Red and yellow are two primary colors. And they are going to mesh and mix to make a very nice orange, a secondary color. Our two primary colors are going to mix to make a nice full orange. All right. Now from this, I'm going to take a pinch of that orange. Roll that in my fingers. So start it as a ball and very gently turn that into a small carrot. And here is the very difficult part. I'm going to take it, I'm going to flatten out one side. And I'm going to add that to my snowman. Hardest part is letting that dry for really about 7 or 8 days. So put it somewhere where you can see it but not mess with it for about 7 or 8 days. You'll have a nice foam sculpture. Thank you so much for joining us with Art on the Farm with Mia, Sage, and Jan, brought to you by the Monroe Area Council for the Arts. See you next time.